Okay, Nikhil, I think we can continue to read whatever has been left from our last reading session.
Okay. So, Jai Bhim to all. We are, as you know, we are currently reading volume number 10, in which we are reading the memorandum submitted by Dr. Ambedkar, in which we have read the part 1 of it, and we will be starting the part 2, that is the educational grievances. We are at page number 450 of volume number 10. So I'll start reading, and uh, we can pause whenever we want to reflect upon. Sure. So part 2, educational grievances. Fifth, want of assistance for advanced education. Uh, Point number 33. Looking at the growth of advanced education among the scheduled caste boys, the following conclusions are deducible. First, that education in arts and law is progressing satisfactorily. That education in science and engineering has made no progress. Third, that advanced education in foreign universities is a very far cry. Point number 34. This sad situation needs to be properly appreciated. As was said in discussing the question of the entry of the scheduled caste in the public services, the welfare of scheduled caste depends entirely upon a sympathetic public service, and that the public service, if it is to be sympathetic, must be representative of the different elements in the national life of the country, and particularly of the scheduled caste. To this, it must be added that the representation of the scheduled caste, if it is confined to a ministerial post, will be of no consequence, no matter how numerous are the posts they are permitted to occupy. This may be good from the standpoint of providing a career for educated young men. It cannot affect the condition of the scheduled caste. The status and condition of the scheduled caste will be improved only when the representatives of the scheduled caste come to occupy executive posts as distinguished from ministerial posts. Executive posts are strategic posts from which a new direction can be given to the affairs of the state. The attainment of executive posts, it is obvious, requires a high degree of education. Such posts will not be open except to those who have acquired advanced education.
Yes, I think this paragraph is pretty clear as to why there is a need of what is called the educational assistance. Because if you look at it carefully, that there is an analysis of how the education in arts and law is progressing satisfactorily, and science and engineering has made no progress. So now compared to today, I think the community has made a long dent on science and education engineering, and the question of education in foreign universities is a very far cry. And when Babasaheb Ambedkar was alive, there was a policy that was put in place where the members of the scheduled caste were sent abroad for the higher education. So the most important point that I see in this particular discussion is, comparing the ministerial posts with the executive posts, and what Babasaheb Ambedkar calls them as strategic posts, which are important, because they give the new direction. So most of the times when the community focused on the political gains, we cannot lose sight of what is called the strategic posts. Those are the executive administrative posts. And as we have seen from the previous reading classes, that the representation of the scheduled caste in the administrative post was next to nothing, almost nothing, nil, compared to the population we had. And one of the reasons for that can be said that there was no people who were having higher education. But today the case is different, right? And here in the paragraph 34, you can find a lot of important points like sympathetic public service, and that the public service, if it is to be sympathetic, must be representative. So you see, the relationship between fraternity and representation has been very beautifully borne out here in this particular paragraph that, why do we need representation? Why do we need reservation? Because then only you can have fraternity. Then only we can have sympathetic government. Then only you can have the sympathetic systems, sympathetic educational spaces. If you do not have that, so for example, the time some of us were studying in the engineering colleges, there were no representation in the teaching staff from our communities, and the students suffered a lot because of that, not having proper representation among the teachers as well. So we can see that it's not something which is difficult to understand, that representation gives rise to the sympathetic situations. All right. So I think we can read further if there is any comment by anybody. You look at this, executive posts are strategic posts, posts from which a new direction can be given to the affair of the state. This is a profound statement, isn't it? And the attainment of executive post, it is obvious, requires a high degree of education. And such post will not be open except those who have acquired advanced education. So the advanced education is the key. Without the advanced education, no community can progress. And that's the point that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is making here in this particular paragraph. Okay, we can go on further, reading further, if there is no any comment from anybody else.
Sure, sir. Point number 35. Education in arts and law cannot be of much value to the scheduled caste, either to the graduates themselves or to the people. It has not been of very high value even to Hindus. What will help the scheduled caste is education of an advanced type in science and technology. But it is obvious that education in science and technology is beyond the means of the scheduled caste, and this is why so many of them send their children to take up courses in arts and law. Without government assistance, the field of advanced education in science and technology will never become open to the scheduled caste, and it is only just and proper that the central government should come forward to aid them in this connection. Point number 36. This problem will be solved if the following proposals are accepted by the government of India.
So you see here, the way Babasaheb Ambedkar defines the problems, and then he goes on providing the proposals to solve those problems. And that's what is the beauty of this particular memorandum, the memo, that it doesn't only define the problems, but it goes on into proposing the solutions to the problem. And I think that's what is important. That's what matters, stating the problems and the solutions thereof. Yes.
This problem will be solved if the following proposals are accepted by the government of India. Point number 1, an annual grant of rupees 2 lakhs for scholarships for scheduled caste students taking science and technology courses tenable at the universities or other scientific and technical training institutions in India. Second, an annual grant of 1 lakh of rupees to be spent on scholarships for the education of scheduled caste students for science and technology in foreign universities in England, the dominions in Europe and in America. Point number 37. There is nothing to prevent the government of India from undertaking this responsibility. Education, it is true, is not a central subject for legislative purposes. Still, Section 152 of the Government of India Act says that the central government may make grants for any purpose, notwithstanding that the purpose is not one with respect to which the central legislature may make laws. This power has been used by the Government of India to support educational institutions. Below is given a list of educational institutions outside the centrally administered areas which receives grant and aids from the central revenues. So these are the educational institutions which are being mentioned with the amount per annum given by the central government. Indian Women's University, Bombay, Visva Bharati Shanti Niketan, Inter-University Board, India, Inter-Provincial Board for Anglo-Indian and European Education. So the amounts per annum are also provided. Then there are scientific societies which have been mentioned along with the amount aided by the government. Then there are some miscellaneous institutions like Indian Olympic Association and Girls Guides Association. So the total of annual recurring grants is amounting to 2,99,100. So this is the figure that has been shared as well in the memorandum.
So this is what, it implies that whenever we make any arguments, we have to have certain kinds of, the set of data to be brought into play in order to prove one's case. And this is what this memorandum shows us how meticulously Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar was arranging the facts and figures, and how he was advancing certain arguments based on reality, based on the statistics, based on the hard data, as we call today, isn't it? And that's the beauty of the researcher's mind, to really dig into the facts and bring out. So this table might sound innocuous to us, but it proves the point that the central government has been funding a lot. Like 3 lakh rupees at the time is a huge sum of money going towards so many institutions, isn't it? So I think that proves the point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll continue further.
Please.
Point number 38. This document not include the annual subvention which the government of India gives of rupees 3 lakhs per annum to the Muslim University of Aligarh and rupees 3 lakhs per annum to the Hindu University of Banaras. The claim made on behalf of the scheduled caste for help in the matter of advanced education at home and abroad receives great support from the financial aid given by central government to these two universities. The grant made to the universities is really grant made to the Hindu and Muslim communities for supporting higher education. That being so, there is no reason why the central government should not undertake to make a similar grant of 3 lakh of rupees annually to promote higher education among the scheduled caste. If the government are interested in raising the status of the scheduled caste, which they have often proclaimed to be their duty, it is high time that a similar provision was made for them in the education budget of the central government.
Very fair argument, isn't it? That the Aligarh Muslim University receives 3 lakh, and the BHU receives this much of a money, and they are community specific institutes or universities. So the plea or the argument that Babasaheb Ambedkar is making here, that why not the similar provision should be made for the members of the scheduled caste. I think that's a very valid way of arguing why that grant should be there. Any comments by anybody?
So I have
Yeah.
one doubt regarding the streams mentioned. So why so much emphasis is being done for like science and technology in those times? Like right now, as we can see, like we consider almost everything to be equally important with respect to like, for example, law is also important for let's suppose
Mhm.
any government aid or policy making or something like that. So how why the emphasis is
I
given
think,
so much?
yeah. I think this, as far as this policy memorandum is concerned, he's talking particularly about science and technology, right? He's saying that a considerable progress has been made in art and law. But as far as science and technology is concerned, there is no proper representation. And the same is the case with people going abroad.
Right.
Okay, so he's making his case for making more funds available, so that the members of the scheduled caste can have that opportunity to enter into the science and technology domain, right? Because that statistics would have been a lot, right? If he had included arts and the law, but he wants to make a case for science and technology. Is that right, Nikhil?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes,
I'll
Nikhil.
proceed. Then, yeah. Point
Okay.
number 39, the scheme, if it is given effect to, will revolutionize the condition and status of the scheduled caste.
Hmm.
The scheduled caste lay great store by it. They would even be prepared for the scheme being made a loan system rather than a system of grants. The scheduled caste boys who receive these scholarships shall be glad to take advantage of it, even if they are required to refund the sums received by them when they are employed, or they may be made to serve the government for a term under a lower scale of salary. There can be no objection to government accepting these proposals.
Hmm.
Point number 40. For the purpose of assisting advanced scientific and technical education among the scheduled caste students, I am making two other proposals. One is to make provision for scheduled caste students in the School of Mines. The Government of India has under its control the Indian School of Mines, which is located at Dhanbad. The school provides high-grade instructions in mine engineering and in geology. The training given in the Indian School of Mines is calculated to train men who can serve in the coal mining industry and other mineral industries in India. The number of students that are at present taking instructions in the Indian School of Mines are about 97. The school is open to students from all parts of India. From inquiries made, it is established that out of the 97 students, there is not a single one from the scheduled caste. It is very necessary that some special measures should be taken by the Government of India to see that the students belonging to the scheduled caste are in a position to take advantage of the Indian School of Mines. To achieve this object, it will be necessary first to reserve a certain number of seats for the scheduled caste boys having the minimum standard of education required for admission. B. The grant of freeships. C. The grant of scholarships. It will not be too much to claim that 1/10 of the total number of admissions should be reserved for the scheduled caste. This is a matter which falls within the scope of the Labor Department, but it is a question which concerns also the Finance Department, in as much as the freeships and scholarships would mean the loss of revenue to the state. But the loss on account of these measures will not be very on an average, which a student has to incur in the School of Mines be about 60 rupees a month, which would mean a monthly expense of rupees 60 per student. The other proposal which I wish to give is fourth, representation to the scheduled caste on the Central Advisory Board of Education. The constitution of the board consists of first, the honorable member in charge of the Department of Education, Health and Lands, chairman, the educational commissioner with the government of India, 10 nominees of the government of India, of whom one at least shall be a woman, one member of the Council of State elected by the Council of State, two members of the Legislative Assembly elected by the Legislative Assembly, three members of the Inter-University Board India nominated by the Inter-University Board of India. Seven, a representative of each local government who shall be either the minister in charge of education or his deputy, or the director of public instruction or his deputy, or such other person as the provincial government may nominate in this behalf. The functions of the board are A. To advise on any educational question which may be referred to it by the Government of India or by local government. B. To call for information and advice regarding educational developments of special interest and value to India, to examine this information and to circulate it with recommendations to the Government of India and to the local governments. Point number 44. From the functions of the board, it is quite clear that the board can study the educational problem of the scheduled caste as that of special interest and frame recommendations and advise central and provincial governments in that connection. Such a thing can be of immense importance in focusing the attention of the governments and the universities on the spread of higher education among the scheduled castes.
Very clear, right? Self-explanatory. It's very clear and self-explanatory. We can go on reading further unless any of you have anything to comment on or reflect upon. I think we can go on further.
Okay. Point number 45. It is, however, necessary in the first place to get the board interested in the educational problem of special classes like the scheduled caste. This can be done only by giving representation to members of the scheduled caste on the board. It is therefore suggested that two representatives of the scheduled caste should be nominated on the board. 6. Want of facilities for technical training, technical education. From the point of raising the economic condition, technical education for the scheduled caste is more important than literary education. But technical education is also very costly, and it is not possible for children of the scheduled caste to take technical education. And without technical education, their economic condition will not be improved. Owing to the social system of the Hindus, the scheduled caste occupy economically a very low place in the Indian economy. In times of prosperity, he is last to be employed. In times of depression, he is first to be discharged. This, of course, is a result of the social prejudices of the Hindus which operate against him. But there is also the other difficulty which stands in his way, and that is he is generally an unskilled laborer with no technical knowledge. It seems to me that the government of India can do a great deal to improve his lot by enabling him to acquire a technical skill which he does not now possess, and this can be easily done by introducing a system of apprenticeship for the scheduled caste boys in undertakings run or controlled by the government of India, in which the possibilities of giving such technical training do exist. I am referring only to two. First, apprenticeships in government printing presses. There are a number of printing presses which are maintained by the government of India. There are so many skilled occupations which are open to persons trained in a printing press: compositors, printers, binders, etc. There is no reason why the government of India should not have a scheme whereby suitable boys from the scheduled caste should be taken as apprentices to learn the various occupations which are related to the printing trade. Second, apprenticeships in railway workshops. The railways in India, most of which are owned by the government of India, also maintain workshops where fitters, carpenters, and other technicians are employed. And I do not know whether the railway department have schemes of taking apprentices to be trained as technicians to be subsequently employed on the railways. But even if such a scheme was not in existence, it is necessary to have one for the benefit of the scheduled caste. 48. Therefore, I suggest the scheme of apprenticeship whereby annually a good number of boys from the scheduled caste should be given training in the printing press and the railway workshops. The cost of it cannot be very great.
Yes, so far we have seen how the problems are stated in terms of the educational grievances of the scheduled caste, and after stating the grievances, it's very imperative to provide the solutions. And looking at the solutions, we can see that the solutions that has been presented by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, if they had been implemented in its letter and spirit since 1942, the situation would have been different. So, for example, even if we map it with IITs or the big reputed institutions in our country today, the data that was presented by Nikhil in the last class is an indication of how still the representation for the scheduled caste is not met in the premium institutes. So there are many ways by which this representation can be improved, and the system can be made to serve the interest of the scheduled caste in proportion to their population. But it all depends on the kind of you know uh, uh, initiatives by the government as to how they can ensure such kind of representation. And in some ways, here in this memorandum, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has pointed out to some of the proposals which can be worked upon to ensure that the like, for example, he was the member of the what is called Viceroy's Executive Council, and he knew that there is the School of Mines and he was, of course, a labor minister, and he knew that there is a school of mine, Dhanbad, and when he inquired, he found that there is no candidate from the scheduled caste. So this is a very sorry state of affairs. This is a total case of non-representing a particular third community, third most populous community. It's something wrong with that, right? So I think this whenever we read this kind of a policy memo, and particularly coming directly from Babasaheb Ambedkar, we begin to see that how much we need to learn the skills of presenting the situation, analyzing with the facts and the data, and prepare a policy draft so that it can be presented to the government, right? So anything on this?
Yeah, I am having one doubt in this. Can
Yes,
I
yes.
raise the doubt?
Yes, please, Sunil sir.
In this, Babasaheb said that scheduled caste boys should be given the representation. He could have as well said scheduled caste girls also should be given the representation.
I'm sure that is what he meant. He won't.
So boys includes girls also.
I think that time the language was, like not very
Okay.
sensitive, like the way it is sensitive today, right?
Okay.
Anything from anybody else? Anyone? Yes, Dhara.
Sir, if we want to have this type of critical analysis and analytical thinking, so our education system does not address this. So our engineering and science and tech courses, they don't teach it. So here Babasaheb is advocating for science and tech, but I'm just saying for currently now in engineering and science and tech, this type of critical thinking is not taught.
Right. So critical thinking is important, and education should promote that. But here the emphasis is on a different goal. The whole memorandum talks about the representation in the government, and in the civil services, in the technology institutes, and so on and so forth. So before we go on reading, these are some of the very important points which are covered in this particular memorandum, and the more we reflect on them, the more we begin to see that the sort of future way out of the difficulties and the problems. And a man of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's caliber, a profound scholar and researcher and a reader and writer, he's have this unique ability to even draft the policy memos, something very significant, and the community has a lot to learn from the skills that are there to apply to solving the various problems facing the communities, right? Okay, I think we can go on reading further.
Sure, sir. So now we are reading the part number 3, that are other grievances. Neglect in the matter of publicity. It is quite well known that the government of India engages itself very largely in giving publicity to the saying and doings of different individuals and parties who represent the main forces operating in India. As an illustration of this, I would refer to the volume called India and the Aggressor, the Trend of Indian Opinion between 1935 to 40, issued by the Bureau of Public Information of the Government of India. The name of the volume is very misleading. It has nothing to do with the aggressor. It is a collection of sayings and doings of the political parties and politicians in the country and presents a full resume of the views of the majority and minority in India. Now, the most annoying part of this volume is the complete neglect of the sayings and doings of the scheduled caste. I'm audible, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Of the scheduled caste. Out of the 940 pages, 158 pages are given to the Congress, 85 pages are allotted to the Muslims. The Hindu Mahasabha and Hindu League are given about 10 pages. The Liberal Federation has received 16 pages. The Sikhs spread over 6 pages, Indian Christians over 2 pages, and the scheduled caste are disposed of in about 3 pages. And what is surprising is that in these 3 pages devoted to the scheduled caste, the material which is included is of trifling character. It omits altogether to take notice of some of the most important events that have taken place during this period and important pronouncements made by leading individuals from the scheduled caste. I may mention only one such event, was the movement for conversion. Beyond question, it was a movement which shook the Hindu society to its very foundations and attracted the notice of the whole world. To emphasize the trumpery sort of publicity given to the scheduled caste in this volume, it is enough to say that the St. Mary's College, Kurseong, once undertook to give publicity to the cause of the scheduled caste and has, as a result, published material covering the same period, which fills a volume of 507 pages. So vast have been the forces and movements affecting the and emanating from the scheduled caste during this period of 1935 to 40. As to myself, I must have made many pronouncements touching the scheduled caste. Not one of them, however, finds a place in this volume. It is true that this volume is intended for official use only, but in my opinion, this fact does not alter the great value which the compilation must necessarily have. It goes without saying that it is the mind of the official which is to a large degree responsible for determining the direction which the affairs of the state will take. It also determines the value which he ought to give to the issues in which communal interests are involved. It also goes without saying that the attitude and the mind of the official is bound to be determined by the kind of material in which is presented to him and on which he feeds in a volume like this. Further, the degree of publicity given to the cause by government in a government publication may be treated by him as the value which government attaches to it and as a direction for him for evaluating the needs and claims of different communities. Looked at from this point of view, this volume is sure to give to the officers working in the central secretariat as well as in the provincial governments and even to the secretary of the state the impression that the government of India regards the scheduled caste as a negligible force not worth bothering about. That this is the effect which this volume has produced is evident from the speech delivered to the parliament by the Secretary of State, where the references to the Muslims are empathetic and positive, while the references to the scheduled caste are just of a parenthetical nature. It is a grievous wrong done to the scheduled caste, whose cause has received a setback at a most critical period in this struggle by reason of this unbalanced presentation of their case on the part of government. I would press that the Bureau of Public Information be asked to prepare a supplement to the volume which it has issued, giving full space to movements carried on by the scheduled caste and the pronouncement their leaders have made.
Great. I think it's self-explanatory, right? This is self-explanatory as to how in the government documents the communities are represented, is having an impact on the officials who are working with the government. And it's very beautifully worded, 2 pages that I see, it's so, there is so much to take away from this. A proper representation in the government documents is very important. Okay.
Point number 50. Of course, government may say that it is not bound to do publicity work for parties and communities, and that the parties and communities may do their own publicity. But that is not the case here. The government of India, as I have shown,
Thus,
engages, thus engages itself very much in this work of publicity. And when a government does it, it is bound to treat all parties on equal footing in the matter of publicity and give a true and correct picture of the movements and forces operating in the country.
beautiful. So he's talking about representation in the media as well, in the publicity also, right? So you pick up the news and media. We hardly see the news concerning the particular class of people, right? If it is there, it's mostly in the negative way, like atrocities and so on and so forth. So there is no representation in the media, even government-owned media, government's own publicity devices, right? That time, 1942. And I don't think the situation has changed a lot today. Okay. Okay, I think we can go ahead if there is no comment or no reflection.
Right. Eighth, closed door in government contracts. A good part of government needs in public works is carried out not departmentally but by contracts. This is so in normal times. In war times, the work done for government by the contract system has expanded several hundredfold. I can speak only of the Central Public Works Department. The list of approved contractors maintained by the Central Public Works Department is 1171. Of these, I am told there is only one contractor which belong to the scheduled caste. The rest of them are Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims. It should be possible for government to arrange things in such a manner as to make its contract system allow an open door to members of all communities to profit by it. There are many persons of the scheduled caste who could be trusted to carry out a government contract. Already many members of the scheduled caste are working as employees of Hindus, Muslims, or Sikh contractors. The result is that the Hindu, Muslim, or Sikh contractors are taking profit while the scheduled caste men are working on a mere wage. There is not so much difficulty in getting a certain number of men from the scheduled caste put on the list of approved contractors, but what is important is to enable them to get a contract. There are two rules in the matter of government contracts. First, that a contract is to be given generally to a contractor whose tender is the lowest. Second, that government is not bound to accept the lowest tender. It is therefore a matter of discretion which is exercised by the officer in charge whether a contract will go to a particular contractor or not. This discretion is not likely to be exercised in favor of a scheduled caste contractor. His tender may be the lowest, but owing to the communal prejudice, he may not accept it and rely on the second rule that he is bound to accept the lowest. If his tender is higher than the lowest, he will not accept it, although he is free to do so. He will rely on the first of the two rules. Either way, he will have his justification for rejecting the tender of the scheduled caste contractors. There is, of course, no remedy against communal bias. The only thing that strikes me that we can do is to amend the rule by saying that a tender of a scheduled caste contractor, if it is not higher than the lowest by 5%, shall be deemed to be the lowest. This, of course, involves financial loss, and the finance department will have to agree to it. I cannot give any idea of the approximate cost of such a concession. I'm sure it will not be heavy as to break the camel's back.
So I think this government contracts is a very important area that we need to think carefully about even today, because in every country, the government is the largest player in the market. And the government has not only work in the public works, like buildings or construction of road, but in so many areas, the government goes for contracting, and it's very much true today that the government goes for contracting in a lot of areas. But even if you look at the cursory, even if you have a cursory glance at the status of contracting in this country, they go to the people from particular communities. It's happening everywhere. And that's one of the areas that needs to be, researched into as to what happens to the government contracts, who is taking the major chunk of the government contracts, and how much is the representation of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and the OBCs in the government contracts. And I think that information will be difficult to come by. But if somebody can make a kind of a paper on that, digging out the data, maybe even a sample survey of a particular state or a particular department, isn't it? Because the government contracting is a huge area. It involves millions and millions of rupees, and it's pocketed by the people from a particular group of people, because they have been having the connections and the communal sort of support. So some of these are some of the areas that need to be talked about. These areas need to come up in the Dalit movement, in the sense of advocating for more rights, more contracts. Why not? The American government had this system of issuing the contracts in all the domains to the communities from the minority backgrounds. And I think this should not be done. Because the government contract, as I said, is a huge area. There is no bigger player than the government in any country when it comes to business, right? The airports, today, if you look at everything is, being handed over to the private parties. How much of that is coming to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and the OBCs? That's the thing that we need to think about, right? So it is not just about CPWD; it's about all the important areas and avenues. You see, the title is very indicative: closed door in government contracts. The door is closed for the members of the scheduled caste. It's a very emphatic way of putting the state of affairs. So anything from anybody? Anybody has any comment to make?
So has there been any provisions? I mean, apart from, I believe I recall there is some certain share of, like, in the tenders and all, I suppose government has made some provision. I'm not sure whether it is on central level or on state level.
They were for, as I remember, they were for the micro and small scale industries. And those contracts were very small in amount, like housekeeping, or very, very negligible contracts. I'm talking about the bigger contracts, right? Contracts at all level, and somebody should do this research work. A few years back, a research was done by one university in Canada, and they have looked at these social profiles of the board of directors of the top 500 companies listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange. They found that there is the percentage of the scheduled caste nothing. So the corporate India, there is no representation, there is no presence at all, isn't it? So this sort of discussion calls for some researchers to really go into it and find out how much. Like, it is very difficult to do a survey of a particular this thing, but maybe one department, for example, maybe one department of the government of Maharashtra, the MSCB, or any department, right?
Indeed, sir.
So that would give a kind of an indication as to what is happening.
And it makes sense. I mean, like, apart from conducting this research and collecting the data and all,
Hmm.
we also need to have good policy makers, especially from our community, who can pitch it to the parties or the MLAs or to the government itself. Until and unless we are able, we are at such a position to uh, to to forward our
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
concerns. I mean, like now we can see, I mean, the importance of our people to learn policy making.
Yeah. And what you shared in terms of the last time you shared one link.
Indeed, sir.
Many of our people should go into those courses and really
Indeed, sir. I'll be looking into it also. Some of the colleges suggested by Thara also. So I'll be looking into it if I can make my way into it.
So I think Nikhil, we reserve the discussion, the part 4 for the next reading session.
Definitely, sir. I think part 4 is the last part, or
It's the last part, but it's very interesting part.
Sir, if someone take policy for masters, so what are the career opportunities?
You see, in America or in the foreign countries, it's considered at par or sometimes even above than the MBA, because you are directly involved into, you can join the think tanks, you can join the the big international organizations like ILO and all these bigger sort of things. Sometimes you can work with the political parties. Sometimes you can work with the governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations. There are lots of career. This what is called the public policy now is being taught in India in several universities. Such was not the case, but in America, it's one of the most popular of the disciplines that the people are going for studies. For example, there is one institute in America called the Rand Institute, and they have very prestigious sort of public policy course at the PhD level. They do the very core public policy research there. But that institute has produced game theory and all these tools. These all tools are useful. Game theory and whatever we study in the mathematics and even in the engineering disciplines. They are all there to study, and it's it has become very rigorous sort of a discipline itself. So you just have some research on your own, Dara, in terms of public policy and universities and the course curriculum, and you will find that it's very fascinating.
And like in addition to that, with if you are like well versed with public policy, either masters or higher than that, even a lot of management consulting companies who work with government like require the policy making experience. Like they prefer the candidates who have policy making experience, because they have to directly work with the government and suggest them ways to improve or make a better policy. So they also consider candidates who have a policy making background as well.
Definitely. You join many consultancies. You have openings in the private sector as well. Praveen has raised his hand. Praveen?
Yeah, I just want to add, what Dhara says. There is a very vast scope for policy and policy professionals, basically in India as well as in abroad. Mangesh Bhai already talked about the scopes in US. But in India, from Tahsil to the district to the state level, there is a lot of kind of policies are being formulated nowadays. Government directly, they just make a decisions, but most of these the policies being drafted by the government advisory agencies, the big government advisory practices. You can say KPMG, EY, PwC, Deloitte. These are the big four or big six, the private advisory companies who actually advise the state government and central government to execute the large scale program as well as form those policies and execute those policies. So if you want to see policy as a career, that is a really good option. You should really think about like the in which area you wanted to go, because there is again the specialization. What kind of policy you will be, what kind of areas you will be interested? Maybe the climate change, maybe the health policies, maybe the rural development policies. So there will be a comprehensive courses on a policy, as well as there will be a very specific programs on a policy. For example, after this Paris conference and then G20 conference, now all those countries are focusing on ESG, environment, social, and governance. But most of this government and then corporates are not very sure, like how they can form those unified policies for their for their own sect. So now lot of universities are coming forward to have a certificate program or like the degree level program on a ESGs, and that is a future for again next 20 to 30 year ESG, because every company has to follow this environment, social, and then governance measurement framework, which is developed by the United Nations, which is also has a link with sustainable development goals and then sustainability. So it is very important to have your own clear understanding, like in which area you wanted to pursue your career in terms of policy. So if you want to keep it as a general, then it is okay. But if you want to make it more specific, then it will be more relevant. So as much as you do study, communicate with people, those who are already in a field, they can able to guide you.
No, that's a very useful information, Praveen. So very, very useful information indeed. So I think there, Nikhil.
Yeah, so I think if like there is any feedback from people who have joined regarding the session, and as we have already discussed, we'll be completing the last part in the next reading session, and post that we'll also be letting you know that what we'll be starting next. So if there is any point to make, the members can make. Otherwise, we can conclude today's session.
Okay. No, I think these sort of readings are very fascinating indeed, because they enable us to really look at the various dimensions that have been opened up by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And you see this, Nikhil, will you share something about? You just now shared one link in one of the WhatsApp groups showing how some people, like I don't know the name of the person, they are writing in the media about this particular memo, and they are very sharp enough to pick up on these kind of things. And I think what we need to do, the young Ambedkarites like you is to really go into this vast literature that is available there, and really make use of it, so that new trends can be developed our own. Because I think Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is a trend setter. So who was talking about the policies and like that? How many policy memos, for example, these other guys might have written at the time. So I don't want to demean anybody, but what I'm trying to say is that he was very well ahead of his time, and that's the beauty of studying these kind of things. So maybe I think in the future we can look at, choose the areas which can be of some value to give directions. Like this particular memo is in that line, which gives us a direction to the community as to where we should be heading for, right?
Definitely. So, like people, like as I shared a link, like people are like just summarizing what Dr. Ambedkar has said in his volume, this
Yeah.
volume, as well as a little bit citation of annihilation of caste. And like I think a lot of material is available, which like by taking inspiration or maybe taking the format in which the analysis have been done, we can like maybe for these current times think about how like we can maybe add some value by ourselves to it. So even I was thinking on one part that this memorandum it mentions the data of you can say 1930s to 40s when what was the you can say demographics that time. So I was thinking to initiate that as compared to current times, that is 2023, what is the change or that has happened among, like you can say, uh, almost you can say 80 to 90 years later,
Yeah.
what has happened. So I will be initiating something on that, so I'll let you know once that is done.
Beautiful, beautiful, Nikhil, beautiful. So let's meet up next week. Sunny?
Sure,
Okay.
sure, sir.
Okay. Let's meet next week, okay?
Thank you, Jai Bhim Bol.
Okay.